Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching Mike and Natalie's journey on 90 Day Fiancé. This is the tell-all. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's get to the show.
Natalie, do you still feel that Mike is your soulmate?
For me, soulmate is like somebody that understands you without words, and you don't have to push yourself or explain yourself. You just feel comfortable, happy.
All right. So she's saying that she believes that a soulmate is someone that understands you without having to explain yourself, that you just feel comfortable and happy. So two things that I'll say about that. On one hand, yes, when you're in a compatible relationship, whether or not we call that a soulmate or not, you typically don't fight very much. You will feel like it just kind of works. And a lot of people that will come to me in individual therapy lamenting that they haven't found the one and they're 24 years old. And I'll say, well, you're young. And the chance of you in the span of time you've had to meet someone that is very compatible, I mean, you have to not only find someone that's compatible, but you have to date them. To find out if someone is compatible or not, you have to date them for potentially a year or two, right? And only then do you really know if you're compatible or not. So on one hand, it's true that anecdotally I've seen a lot of people who will struggle in relationships in some pretty dramatic ways, and then later on meet someone that just fits with them better, and there's very little chaos and very little conflict. There's always conflict and there's always some chaos, but it's relatively low and it's just easier. The relationship they find, once they find a compatible person, it's just easier. It just doesn't require as much hard work as past relationships did. So, and on one hand, yeah, I agree with her that the soulmate or the person you're compatible with is, you don't have to explain yourself all the time. You feel comfortable, you feel happy. On the other hand, I don't know if this is what she's saying, but no matter how good a relationship is, there's always work. There's always conflict. There's always things you have to do to explain yourself, and to expect anyone else to read your mind without having you go through the steps of self-exploration, self-awareness, knowing how to communicate it in a way that doesn't trigger someone else in a non-accusatory way. That's work, and it's hard, and it's not comfortable. And so it could be a bit of a fantasy that she has, that she's looking for this ideal relationship that might not exist on the planet. I don't know what she's saying there. So on one hand, I agree with her. On the other hand, I don't know. Let's continue watching.
If I say now that he is my soulmate, it will be a lie. I'm sorry.
That's a bombshell. How do you feel about that, Mike?
I mean, it's just something I've been struggling with. There's just been a ton of stuff on my mind, you know, kind of questioning myself and the whole relationship, you know, and just...
I don't know, but it just seems like such a tragedy, because from my take of what we've seen on the show is they just can trigger each other, and now because they couldn't really communicate what was really going on in their hearts, now they've completely drifted apart.
What scares me and other stuff, that what will I do there? We discussed it, like, what it be my life like? And I cannot work for 1 year, what will I do?
I think it's a great cost for her to uproot and completely move to a new country, you know? I mean, I can only imagine the fears and stuff that go with all of that.
So it's great. They're thinking and talking about the reality of her coming to the States and marrying him and living with him in a very, very small town. They're thinking about finances, and they're thinking about her work situation and what her lifestyle would be like. These are important things that I feel like a lot of the people on the show, they don't think about. They're just focused on the marriage, and they're not as focused on, well, is this a life that I want? It's very important to think about. Is this the life that I want? Okay, I like this person, but I'm not just marrying this person. I'm marrying a country. I'm moving to another country. Do I want to live in the United States? Do I not want to live in my hometown? Do I want to be separated from my language and my culture and my people and my family and my friends and my favorite restaurant and my favorite food? I'm guessing that in Sequim, they don't have a big Ukrainian community center that you can connect with your culture. So it's important to think about. Another thing that I often hope or wish that people on the show would think about is you're not just marrying that person, you're marrying everyone they're connected to. You're marrying their parents and their kids. If you're marrying into that relationship, you're marrying into their friends and their lifestyle and their job, and vice versa. Now, with this show, it's usually someone leaving a country which rips them completely away from everything, and it does effectively kind of separate that person. So for the person that's staying in their home country, they don't have to give up as much as this person does. Anyway, so they're thinking about that, which is good. I'm guessing in the context of they're not quite sure if this relationship is going to work or not, which it sounds like they're both saying it's not going to work, then the sacrifice would be less appealing.
For me, like my age is 35 years old, and I was married and never had child. And of course I want a child. I want one child, and Michael knew it from early beginning that I want a child. And I was honest from early beginning that it's important for me to have a baby.
Okay, so I fail to see the conflict, honestly. It's almost like they're just trying to fight with each other about this. From what he's been saying, who knows if it's true or not, he definitely wants to have children, just not get pregnant while she's still in Ukraine, for a lot of reasons that he mentioned there. So it's just interesting that they're fighting about that. I mean, it might even be the difference between getting pregnant at one point or maybe just like 6 months later. And is she that desperate to get pregnant and right then?
Just feel like, that we just need to wait just a little bit longer,
So if Natalie were here today, would you start having or trying to have a baby right away?
So Sean always has the best questions. It's like the perfect question, because that's what I'm curious about. Like that, and that's what I would ask as a therapist. You guys are talking in abstract timelines here. What exactly are we talking about here? And if so, maybe the two of you are agreeing in ways that you don't realize.
Priority be done.
No, you ready.
Look, she smiled that one.
It done been done. Yeah.
Okay, wow. Yeah, right. We thawed some ice right there. Right. So, Natalie, did you know Mike felt that way?
We didn't talk much recently, honestly.
So that is the crux of the matter, you two. Like, he just said, because he was asked a very clarifying question, that if she were here in the United States and on a K-1 visa, she would already be pregnant, i.e. meaning that they would have already been trying to get pregnant as soon as she got here. And for her, she didn't know that. And the fact that they have these massive conflicts and they don't clarify to each other so that they can realize, oh, I guess we're actually on the same page. It's that just hesitancy to be vulnerable, so much so that they won't even talk about what they want on those little issues. Like, hey, I'm not talking about years. I'm talking about as soon as you get here, boom, I want to get pregnant with you right away. That they could have solved their problems ages ago if they just would have been more clear around that. And it's not that they're confusing. It's that they're so afraid to extend themselves, or they're in the business of triggering each other so quickly and so often that they're in a defense mode instead of a communication and clarification mode.
We talked only a few times, and it wasn't like pleasant talk.
What do you mean by that?
Never. I would never do this to him.
So, Natalie, what is the status of your relationship today?
Another excellent question, one that I would ask them as well. Let's see what they say.
Michael, what is our status?
No, Natalie. I want to hear from you.
Actually, I might do that too if I felt like I had a good enough relationship with her. because she's done this before. When she's asked a question, she deflects by asking him because, I'm guessing, she's so afraid to be vulnerable because she's so afraid of getting hurt that she deflects in that way. So so Sean, like, no, Natalie, I'm asking you a question. What's the status of your relationship? Let's see what she says.
Michael, what is our status?
No, Natalie. I want to hear from you. So are you together?
I don't know. It doesn't rely only on me. I cannot speak for both of us.
Okay. That makes sense. The status of their relationship is mutually defined. But I think we all know what she's asking Natalie, what Sean is asking Natalie, which is, what do you want to have as this relationship? So maybe Sean will clarify. Okay, fine. But what do you want, Natalie? Do you want to be in this relationship or not?
I'm not out of this relationship. And
You're not out of the relationship?
No. It's kind of on hold, but there are a lot of fears from my side and a lot of talks. How it's going to be, what we're going to do, it's not easy.
So, Mike, I don't feel that you think the relationship is over.
This couple, I mean, if I had them as a client, I would just be, I'd be doing so many things with them. I would be like, don't do that. Are you here to work on your relationship? Yeah, because I would really want to make sure that that's what they were there for, because that gives me the leverage on the next thing. If they say, like, yeah, we're here to improve our relationship, then I would say, then stop deflecting. If you want to improve the relationship, you have to take a risk. It's okay to say what is in your heart, but say something. And both of them do this. They get pushed into a corner and then they just freeze and they just don't say anything. They get asked very direct. And I just imagine, and they've characterized it this way, since he's been back to the States, they've talked over FaceTime, and it sounds like it's just a lot of sighing and disappointment, and neither one of them want to take the leap of faith that it takes to get things going again, and they're just stuck. And I get it, they're afraid and they're hurt, but give it a shot or break up. To just sit there in the sighing disappointment forever is not a happy place to be. And so as a therapist, I would just be like, do something. What's going on? Tell me. Now, I probably wouldn't get to that point because as a therapist, I'm allowed to ask very personal questions. And so right from the beginning, I would probably have them at least telling me how they feel, and their spouse would hear that. I would try to get them to talk to each other. But anyway, so let's see what they say here.
I have hope. It's tough. Like I can't put a stamp on it. And we do have problems. And yes, we are.
I have a lot of difficulty now, and I feel like I'm talking to the wall sometimes, and it's crazy.
And sometimes I feel that way too.
Yes, 100% yes. You both are talking to walls. That would be my description of the two of you. You both are being a wall to the other person and expecting someone to not be the wall. You're like, I want to be the wall and I want you to be the human. Because when you're the human, I'll eventually warm up and I won't have to be the wall. But they're both the wall and they're both waiting for the other to be the human. And they're both cold brick walls that can't have any love.
I think the problem is that we haven't spent a lot of time together, and there are a lot of things that coming out, and we dealing with it, like every other couple.
But you're working to go to America, right?
Yeah, we've been through all process. We did all documents by ourselves.
All right, so it sounds like they're still moving ahead. I guess they both believe enough in the relationship to move ahead with the visa. And I agree with her with what she said she says, I think it's harder because we haven't been in person. I think that's very possible. It's interesting now that I think about it. They had some conflicts while they were together in Ukraine. And as he was leaving, that's when they had a lot of increase in conflict. And I wonder if as he was leaving, there was increased anxiety about wow, if he goes, is he going to fall out of love with me, and vice versa? If I go, will she fall out of love with me? which increased their anxiety and then increased their defensiveness, and then it just made it much worse. I've seen that before, actually, where regardless of any relationship, whether it's a spousal relationship or children sometimes, when children have been through abuse or abandonment of some sort, chaos, and they have to go to school, or their parents are going to go to work, or their siblings are going to go out of town for a bit of time, it can be very disruptive to children and to adults. And you might see an increase in undifferentiated behavior, meaning they will be much more likely to be triggered attachment-wise, much more likely to be hostile, much more likely to put up walls. I just wonder if that was what was going on there. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle, in which I watched 90 Day Fiancé. Join me next time. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.